Welcome to Buckets NBA Finals Edition. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by my colleague, NBA futures analyst Brandon Anderson, and NBA analyst Joe Dellera, as we bring you the NBA Finals preview that you know that you need. We're recording this on Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day, gents. Hope everyone's out enjoying the springtime weather, early summer in some spots, but we are here to talk about betting the NBA Finals. As on Sunday, the Boston Celtics, the team that we did say was the better team all throughout the series, did get the win and advance to the NBA Finals, seeking banner 18. They'll go up against the Golden State Warriors out of the Western Conference. We're going to do best bets on the series in this episode. We will go over our looks on the broad view of the series, how we see it playing out, all that. We are going to record a game one pod concurrently after this one, so you'll be able to find that in your feed as well. So you should be able to find both these podcasts within a couple of hours of each other, looking at both the series prices and how the series are going to play out, and then a game one specific betting guide for that game. So let's go ahead and start here. We're going to go ahead and just say the best bets off the top. Joe Dellera, what's your series best bets for Warriors Celtics in the NBA Finals?
So my favorite bet is for the Golden State Warriors to win game one and the Boston Celtics to win the series at plus 400 at BetMGM.
You got anything else, or is that it?
That's my favorite series bet. And I don't think I'm going to stray from that right now.
Okay. So good.
Just that one.
That's possibly live for 4 days. Brandon, what's your best bet for the NBA Finals? Best bets, hopefully.
Best bets, I will do two here. First one, same as Joe, Warriors game one, Celtics series, plus 400 at BetMGM. And Matt, if you like that one, just wait for this one. This is mostly just this is a fun one. I was going to save this for later, but we want bets with plural, so I'm going to do it at the top. At FanDuel, you can do the thing I tried to tempt you into last round, Matt, where you can bet on the exact outcome of how the series plays out. Here I go. Warriors game one, Celtics game 2, 3, and 4. Warriors come back at home to keep their season alive. Celtics in 6 is plus 2,700 at FanDuel for an exact outcome. Just a little nibble. That's kind of the direction I see the series going. Celtics in 6 after the Warriors take game one. So the main one though, Warriors game one, Celtics series.
I have bet 5 different exact series outcomes.
Yes.
5 different exact series outcomes for a combined total of a unit. That's exact.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Look, I want to take flyers. These numbers are wild, and I love thinking about these type of things. So this one appeals to me. I'll just go ahead and say my best bet for the series is Celtics minus 1.5 plus 200 on the series spread. So we're all in agreement on the Celtics, which is a bummer. I wish that we had more disagreement here. I will not be lured into any sort of bets that are contrary to what the cap is based off of the conversation. I did a little bit, not soul searching. I just did a little bit of stock of okay, I didn't really go wrong on Celtics Heels. We talked about I had so many Celtics Warriors tickets as finals matchups that not only did it one of them easily covered all of my Celtics or my Warriors Bucks tickets, which is great. I came out massively ahead, which is why I could take these flyers now, is because of the amount that I made on the finals matchups. I've come out dramatically ahead. This tactic continues to be very profitable for me. Brandon hates it as much as I hate his game one and series prop. So I'm in a pretty good spot here. I think the conversation about Boston is flawed. I'll just say that at the top. Boston is talked about as this great, amazing, all-time team. They're very good. They're great-ish. The great thing I like about these playoffs is nobody is that good. I love that. I want parity. I want the teams to be close. This isn't just, however, after I did the research this morning and really kind of dug into it, I stayed up late and watched the film and did all the research. I have lots of numbers that we'll throw out here in this program. This isn't just that I think this is a close series and the Celtics are getting a good number at a plus number. Sometimes the Heat, I played that a little bit just because I did think the series was close. And guess what? It went to a game 7 and Jimmy Butler had a chance at actually taking the lead, which As that shot went up, I heard Brandon's just shrieking across the country into my living room. I could hear him cry out in terror. But luckily that shot goes awry. And so this isn't that though. I genuinely think that the Celtics at this point, based off of the research I've done, are going to win. I don't think this is a slam dunk case. I don't think that this is I'm very rarely, as if you listen to this podcast, like, oh, absolutely, this is 100% going to happen. I'm typically just pushing back against when things go too far. And that's often the case in sports discussion, where whether it's on betting or anything else, you want to make your case so much that you wind up overstating things. The problem is I get suckered then into being like, well, that's not true, so I'm going to go the other way. And that's not what you want to do. Our good friend Raheem Palmer, now of The Ringer, mentioned that he has the Celtics favored in this series. By my numbers for game one, which we'll talk about again in the next episode, I have the Celtics favored on the road in game one. I had them favored in Miami in those games as well. And so I'm returning to that. I'm getting past the idea of getting suckered into any sort of like narrative discussion. And I'm going to focus surely on the numbers. And to me, the numbers indicate that I should be on Boston in this matchup. Brandon, let's start here. Let's talk about further betting. Okay. Let's say that the Warriors don't win game one. Let's say that Boston wins game one. Your opportunity to bet Boston at a plus number is now gone. It will be gone. How do you then bet that series in the event that you're wrong about game one?
Well, I'm going to be right about game one because that's how I do it. But so I ran my numbers also on the series, and I could not believe this. Just straight up series percentages. Because look, I think we're all going to end up at a similar spot here. I think obviously we all like Boston better, but we all have to like Boston better despite that they've just played 2 7-game series, and despite that the Warriors are the home team and home for game one, on a short rest from Boston, and home for possible game 7. So that has to frame the whole thing. For me, this was kind of the conversation with Boston, Miami. It was like, well, I definitely like Boston better than Miami, but Miami has the home game one. Miami would get the home game 7. It gives them some outs. This is similar to that, except that I certainly like Golden State more than Miami, as Matt knows. So I ran the numbers. I have Warriors winning the series 49.4% of the time and Celtics 50.6% of the time, because I like Boston better, but the Warriors winning game one is my surest outcome of any game that I have set up in the series. And the Warriors winning game 7, I think, is one of my next surest outcomes. So to your question, if I like Boston, but my bet dies because Boston has won game one, now what do I do? I think the Warriors nearly have to win game one to win the series. If the Warriors win game one, I put them about 58-60% to win the series. If the Warriors lose game one, I drop them down to about 25%, maybe a little bit higher than that. So that's how important I think it is for them to get this first game. So Matt, your bet, Boston minus 1.5 on the series line. That's my second favorite bet in the series. If I had to make a different one, it's plus 220, by the way, at BetMGM. I will probably make that bet. I just want to make it after game one, because I'm going to get a longer number as long as the Warriors win, as I expect. If I wait and Boston wins, I don't know that there's an angle. I think I probably missed my chance. But is Boston a favorite if they win game one on the series? I assume they're probably a slight favorite.
Yeah, it have to be.
What do you think? Like minus 120? 30, somewhere in there?
Probably deeper. I would say, like, you take game one on the road.
You think it'd be a full flip?
Yeah.
Minus 160, the Warriors to like
probably minus 140. I would say that there's a little bit of a cutoff there just because of the public perception. I think if you go minus 140, it depends on it might be minus 160 and just like even worse hold on Golden State, because they're not going to want to make Golden State a big dog.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's just a spot where I can afford. I'm not so overconfident that Boston is going to take this. When my numbers say nearly an exact coin flip for the series, I don't want to be so overconfident that I have got to find a Boston position no matter what to hang on to. So if I just lose game one because the Celtics were so good in the series that they won it, then I think I just tip my hat and say, well, Boston's probably going to win the series.
This
And
is
I
the
think I missed
NBA
my
Finals,
chance.
and we're on an NBA Finals betting program, and you're basically saying that in 4 days, well, that's good. You're doing the SpongeBob meme. Well, I'm gonna head out. Like that's what you're saying here. Is like, well, if I'm wrong about this one outcome, then I'm done.
On the specific series after game one, I don't think there'd be an angle for me. Maybe the Warriors come back and provide an angle. Maybe the angle is taking the Warriors now, if they're, depending on what their number moves to, or maybe the angle is taking like Steph to an MVP or something like that. On the series bet alone, I think after a game one Celtics win is not a great spot to bet them. So
okay, so I will say that can we all agree that we recommend Celtics minus 130, that we think that there's still value on that? Or I'm sorry, I believe it's plus 130 is what they're at in terms of the actual just series spread, Ryan. Like, yeah, it's 130 at FanDuel. Like, Joe, do we agree that there's value on the Celtics at plus 130 since you like them to win the series with this more complicated mechanism?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's probably more on the bet that you took, the minus 1.5, because I think that if it goes 7, they probably don't win there. Like I would not want them in a game 7 against the Warriors at home.
Brandon knows this. Brandon knows why I took the minus 1.5, because if it goes to game 6, what am I doing, Brandon?
You will be hedging.
I will be hedging because that's what I do. I spend my life searching for little tiny ROIs. So yeah, like, but we agree that there's plus 130 value. Brandon, you agree that, like, my question for you is the plus 130, is that enough EV for you for a better, if they're listening to this podcast and they don't want to lock themselves into the outcome 4 days from now, or they don't want to lock themselves into the series, but if they're like, well, I want the possibility of them winning in 7 because they just beat the Warrior or beat the Heat on the road in game 7.
100%.
Plus 130 is 43.5% implied. And I just said a bit ago, I have Celtics at 50.6%. Okay. So that's about 7% of value. So yes, there is value. I think that they can win a game 7 on the road. I would not want to take that away from them. So if you just like the Celtics better, just take the 130 and ride with it.
Yeah. You no longer fear game 7s at all. You've just decided to throw out all of the game 7 data entirely. That's just like where you're at. You're just like, I'm done. I believe much more in the fact that the Celtics have not lost after losing in these playoffs. That's been your bread and butter go-to. Like, that's a large reason why I'm on this, is I'm just like, well, okay, they have responded to all these losses. Their intensity, like their mindset is a lot of this. That's a very narrative thing, but it matters to me. Like, I trust that if Golden State takes game 1, that Boston's going to come in and they're going to find a way to steal game 2. If Golden State takes game 3 in Boston, I have a lot of confidence they're going to come back and they're going to win game 4. I don't think that Golden State can get both in the Bay. I don't think Golden State can get both in Boston. So I'm not looking at a 3-1 series either way. And so at that point, okay, it's basically 5 and 6, and Boston has proven this to me over and over again. I have a lot of stuff to kind of like dive into on this series. I have written, quite honestly, an insane amount of words in the last 12 hours. I did not expect to write this much. Usually I'm like, I do a lot of film and it just kind of percolates in my brain. And I just started writing everything I noticed when I started doing the film work and looking at the details. I have a number of takes on stuff. A lot of it's player based, which is going to make for, I think, a fascinating discussion in the finals MVP conversation. But I'll go ahead and ask this from a starting point. All right, if we believe that Boston's going to win the series, which we do, then the way I'm approaching this is that Boston's defense is going to be better than Golden State's offense by a wider margin than Golden State's defense will be better than Boston's offense, right? If you take that back, you're basically like, oh, congrats, Matt. You just said that they're going to score more. But what I really mean by that is that I have more concerns about Golden State's offense versus the level of this elite defense and how they are schematically built than I do about Boston's offense versus this Golden State defense, which is very good. And again, I continue to think that this Boston offense is not that great. I still think they've gotten a lot of breaks. They've gotten a lot of favorable stuff to go in their way. I'm kind of banking that that's going to continue. Like if you ask me, like if they had to play like 3 more rounds without endurance questions, I don't think I'd like Boston. Like they should have lost to the Bucks. Never going to get me off that. They should have lost to the Bucks, but they didn't because Chris Middleton got hurt. And now it's like, but when I look at this, Golden State's offense has been inconsistent enough. If I'm worried, Brandon, if you're looking for, okay, I want to bet Warriors. You guys are all saying Boston. Give me a reason to bet Warriors. Your bet has to be predicated on the Celtics defense cannot slow down Golden State's offense. Do you agree?
I think it has to be predicated on that. And I think you have to just be hoping for Warriors offensive variance. When we did the Boston-Milwaukee series, I made my case for Milwaukee. For me, it's the case for Boston here. I think Boston's defense is better enough and great enough, and in a weird way, that their offense is actually more reliable, I think, than the Warriors will be here. Like more reliable with a lower ceiling, but a higher floor. I kind of know that Boston is going to give me a shot in every game. The Warriors are going to shoot like 45 or 50 threes a game. They shot 46 and 48 in the 2 games in the season. That was 53% of their shots. For the regular season, the Warriors attempted 46% of their shots on threes. So that was even higher than usual, like over half their shots on threes. That makes them high variance. So if you like the Warriors, the case is it's the thing we saw from the Mavericks in a couple of their series wins, not against the Warriors. Didn't work. The threes didn't fall. But look, we just watched 2 series. Boston said, go ahead, Miami. Go ahead, Max Strus. Go ahead, PJ Tucker. Go ahead, Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton. Take your threes. Whoops, you missed. We won. We advanced. And Golden State, those threes are going to be Klay Thompson or Jordan Poole or Otto Porter or Andrew Wiggins. But you feel better about those threes. Obviously, Steph's going to get his too, but those extra guys shooting threes, I think your hope for Golden State is this. Number one, you hope that the good offense can beat good defense because the Warriors just make shots. Number two is you got this formula. Golden State, game 1, at home, big rest differential advantage. Golden State, game 7, at home, where home teams are typically dominant. That's 2 wins. Golden State has won at least 1 road game. I forget the number, something like 26 or 27 straight series now. That's 3 wins. You only need 4. So if you give Golden State 1 road win, a game 1 win, and a game 7 win, they only have to win game 2 at home or game 5 at home or another road win. That's, to me, is the formula. And that's why I think they still have a very real chance here.
Joe, when we look at this, what's the biggest reason that you like Boston for the series, as well as Golden State in game 1? But for Boston in this series, what's the reason that you think that they wind up winning, especially after they go down 0-1? Because historically the trends, which Brandon doesn't care about, have favored the team that wins home game 1 to a pretty high degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that we've seen from Boston throughout the entire postseason, though, is their ability to make adjustments. And I think that even if they lose game 1, I think that they can learn a lot from that and take something from that. And I think that there's obviously some fatigue, but there's going to be more days in between these games. And I think that we've seen a lot from Al Horford. I think that this is a good opportunity for Robert Williams to maybe get a little bit of rest. Because like when he's healthy, I think they need him for their rotations anyway. But I think that, like Brandon said, their offense kind of has a certain floor to it that we shouldn't. So I don't think we'll see them totally drop off. And you could argue that, Tatum is probably the best scorer in terms of creating his own shot. Like, I don't know, like if maybe between either team, even though Curry is obviously on the Warriors, but I think that there's certain pressure points that Boston can take advantage of in Golden State's defense, like whether it's Jordan Poole, whether it's, maybe Robert Williams, if he can stay on the floor defensively, he can become a pressure point on offense because the Warriors don't have like a real big, like they have Looney and he's played well, but I think you can kind of run a bigger lineup if you're Boston between Horford and Williams, and that rebounding advantage could be significant. So I think that Boston's defense coupled with some of their personnel, but I think the margins, I think definitely a little bit thinner because I feel like they don't have as many different personnel counters as opposed to maybe coaching counters. They're going to really rely on that and then hoping that they have health from Robert Williams, Al Horford, and so on, and they can stay on the floor.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. I'll say this, doing the film work, I have, Williams, when he's been on the floor, right, their defense has been just berserk. Like, it's been incredible when Williams has been on the court. However, what's interesting is this team is the number one team that you need to switch against, which is great because Boston switches a ton. You know who doesn't switch is Robert Williams. In the playoffs, when Williams is switching, like here's the overall numbers. When Robert Williams is on the floor in the postseason, they're giving up 98.5 points per possession. That's incredible. That's phenomenal. You're below 100 and you're elite. One of the issues, however, is that Williams can't really switch. They give up 1.15, so that goes to 115 per 100 possessions with Williams switching as a screener defender compared to 0.824 or 82 points per 100 possessions in all other switching possessions. What I'm telling you is that when the Celtics have switched with Robert Williams, they've gotten cooked. And when I went back and watched the regular season matchups with Williams, it was pretty apparent that Williams is just not comfortable playing out there on the perimeter. And so what the Warriors did a little bit, and again, a lot of this is like when you have two teams that play at this level, there's always a little bit of let's not show what we're going to see. There's not a lot actually of Curry action in games 1 and 2 of this regular season series. Everyone is going to say you can throw those games out because of like this is the easiest, most popular thing to do. Well, they're totally different teams. The reason I pay attention to these is to see you have two coaches that want to play a certain way. Based on these matchups and the game plan in place, what were their basic takeaways? And so you try and find some things. And Williams is just not good playing at that perimeter. He's foul heavy. He gets out of position. He will overplay, which allows Steph to then split and come back into the middle. Especially on off-ball stuff, Williams plays back a little bit. And when they come off of those DHOs or just off-ball screens, that means clean open threes. So Williams, I'm a little concerned about. I am a little bit concerned about Time Lord being able to stay on the floor in this series, Brandon. Before we talk props, is there anything you want to push back on with me on there?
No, I'm with you on that. And that will play into props is that I was worried at first when I was thinking about Golden State. I was like, man, I don't know if Looney's going to have a great role in this series. I feel like they're going to have to play small a lot because I don't know if Looney can stay out there. And I was like, oh, well, Looney can play when Rob Williams plays. And I think I think those are the minutes. I think you mirror those two. But I think the longer the series goes, the smaller that we're going to get. And not really small, but I think we're going to get just a lot of Draymond at the 5. I think too, and this worries me as I thought through this, if Looney doesn't play a big role, I think Otto Porter is kind of a really important player in the series. And that has to work. If you are trying to bet on the Warriors and Otto Porter is a really pivotal player for the series, that has to be a bit of a worry. Like Otto's been good. Otto was really good, 20 minutes a game the last 2 series, but he hasn't been healthy. So we don't know. We don't know if he can, like, in this moment, will he make the threes? Like we're going to get either Otto or Wiggins or both are going to be in that Harrison Barnes spot of go ahead, buddy, take your 8 threes. Let's see what happens.
I will go a step further on you. They played a little bit of Otto at 5 versus Horford, and it worked. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it can be really good, but it's a bit worrisome that is a pressure point.
Think of it this way. All right. They're beating you with Looney because Williams can't drop. So you go to small with Horford so that Looney can't stretch out to guard Horford. So the Warriors turn around and they go Porter at 5 because Horford can't stretch out to guard Porter. Like that's how this evolution goes. What I do think is interesting, you said we're going to see small more and more. That's a pretty safe assumption just because most series get smaller as they go along. That's just where we've been. Like I'm going to be writing a whole thing about the series is fascinating for a number of reasons, but it's also depressing for one. There's basically one way to play. Shoot a bunch of threes and switch everything. Like that's essentially the formula. Switch everything, play small, shoot a ton of threes. That's what both of these teams kind of teach you. The Warriors, funnily enough, actually have kind of moved away from that. Like you mentioned their 3-point rate in the playoffs, it's down considerably. And you could say like, well, part of that's because of who they were playing. I think to a degree, but I actually do think that they're going to attack you inside quite a bit once they get Williams off the floor.
That's fair because I noted that like, the Warriors have been getting all these freebie 2-pointers especially against Dallas and Denver when they just kind of stretch out the defense and then just take what's there inside. And I was like, well, Boston is the best in the league at 2-point defense or close to it, at least, depending on which stat you use. That's not going to happen anymore. But you're right. When Robert Williams goes away and then things stretch out and now it's Grant Williams, who I know that you have some issues with, or Horford, depending on switching, then it's maybe there. I did make the same note though. A few friends who are let's say who are not NBA analysts, who are friends who watch the game, have been like, oh man, what a great finals! The number 1 defense and against an elite offense, and I'm like, well, no, that's really not the series. It's really 2 great defenses and 2 offenses that aren't really as good as you think that they are. And then I looked at the numbers for the playoffs so far. The Warriors are number 1 in offensive rating, and they're pretty good on defense, but they're number 1 on offense. They're hitting their shots. Their true shooting and effective field goal and all that is through the roof. So they have trended that way. And of course, like it's more Clay and more Poole that, early in the season when they were obliterating teams defensively was not as much Poole yet, who has been a problem, but it was a lot of Gary Payton and it was a bunch of Iguodala, who we don't know if he's going to like, there were a bunch of defense first guys.
I will say
made a big impact.
There's a lot of indications those guys are going to be available. I'll just say that.
You
Like,
think
maybe they're going to be hurt,
play?
not 100%. That's fair. But like likely even, but like I would just say that you're giving a perception that those guys are like really super questionable. And I don't think necessarily that they are. They practiced today, didn't skirmish, and Kerr kind of intimated that they would scrimmage later in the week. And that probably means that they're going to play. You got something, Joe?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like my one concern with this series, like if it does go small, I think that plays into the Warriors' like strengths. Like if I'm Golden State, like I want to play small against the Celtics because you take out 2 of their key rotational players in Robert Williams and Al Horford. Like they need them. Like, I don't know, like you're going to see Pritchard on the floor in the finals. That's not what you want if you're Boston. So I'm concerned that if the series does go small, like I don't know if that favors Boston. I think they might want to try. I think they need to try to figure out a way to keep Robert Williams on the floor.
I don't think they can get Horford off the court because in any lineup, they're even if like you play Porter ostensibly at 5, you're still going to be playing Draymond 45 minutes a game.
Well, okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is like Horford's not, he's no spring chicken here. Yeah. Like playing like 45 minutes a game in the finals that we think is going long, I think is untenable. Like, I don't know how you do that after you came off back-to-back 7-game series, but I mean, he's been doing it. So
like a problem with that, because I would be with you and I would be a little more worried about Boston off the 2 7-game series, but we're at the finals now where we just milk this out for the next 3 weeks. And there are 2 entire days off between every single game of the series, except game 3 and 4 in Boston.
Well,
so I think do we agree that helps Boston more than helps Golden State?
No, I don't. I'm going to push back a little bit on this. I think Joe's more right that like, look, you're at the end of it. You're at the end of an 8-month-long season. And now you're playing these like 45-minute games. And then you're like, well, they have 2 days off. Ooh, an extra day. When one of it's travel, you still have to do media. You still have game. Like, it's not a relaxing 2 days. You have media requirements, you have travel, and you have like serious game planning and all the other stuff. Like, I don't personally think that it's like a bit. You've really gotten into the like. Well, it's more spread out. I just don't think that if it was like 4 days, then okay. But we don't have like this long gap that's enough to get it over. Like, is it helpful not to play every other day? Sure. Is it like enough to counterbalance like Al Horford being 37 and needing to play 45 minutes a game because I have serious concerns about Grant Williams? Probably not. I'm just on the other side of just like, nope, I think Al can handle it. He's in great shape and Al's the man.
Yeah.
Which is why
well, like that the thing is, if you want to be worried about Al, fine. But then you got to be worried then too about Draymond holding up, who had back injuries not long ago, and Steph, who has an ankle injury. Like, and they're, you know, Smart and Tatum, they're injuries on both sides, but the Warriors have the other old guys in the series. So if you want to do the Al thing, then you have to be worried about
but
them.
they are all younger than Al by several years. And that gap, I think, is significant. I will say this before we move to props, because this is actually a really good transition. In my opinion, there's been a lot of talk about like, well, Boston's just faced this incredible road. Look at who Boston has beat. And I'm kind of like, look, the Heat were better than they were given credit for, but everyone said they sucked. So let's throw out the Heat because everyone said the Heat sucked. Then we've got the Bucks. I don't know if you know this, Brandon, but the Bucks were without Chris Middleton. I don't know if I've mentioned
really.
He was
out that series
episodes.
for the whole series.
For the whole series. And then like the Nets were a joke. The Warriors, on the other hand, you mentioned like their defense has been kind of meh. The Warriors faced Nikola Jokic, who could literally pull a 111 offensive rating out of almost anyone, and that series kind of proves it. They faced Memphis, who mashed up very well with them and had Ja as the initiator, and then faced Luka, and as our good friend said, snipers. To me, offensively, not overall team quality, but offensively, the Warriors faced a much tougher road. The Celtics faced a bunch of like the Nets literally don't have an offense because they're run by a space cadet. The Bucks didn't have their primary like ball handling wing, and Giannis was still ungodly, and nobody else could shoot anything. Shouts to Drew Holiday and Grayson Allen. And then the Heat, like we talked all year about like the offense being like the concern, and when it was bad, it was even worse to the point where it's like, again, Miami got bad shot variance on top of Boston's elite defense. So to me, that's the thing. Yeah. We talked about Horford. So I want to go ahead and start there with our props conversation because let's go ahead and do our best bets for props. You guys ready?
Yeah.
We're looking for series bets on props.
Series bets for props, including finals MVP, because I'm looking to you guys for all the numbers ones. Okay. I have a number that I made. I made a number of bets before the series started. I actually made them when the finals MVP first came available in the second round. I lost value on Jordan Poole somehow. I got him at 18-1, and now I know, Brandon, you have him at 200. I got him at 18-1. He's now 20-1, 25-1. That's annoying. That's very annoying that I lost value on Jordan Poole somehow. I grabbed a Steph at a long number. I grabbed Jayson Tatum at a long number. I actually do not recommend either of those bets. My finals MVP best bets. Tatum is the hedge. You bet the value on Tatum. Al Horford at 40-1 to win finals MVP. I think this is a preposterous number. Brandon, what are your best bets for finals MVP and series props?
That's really fascinating because you called Tatum the hedge, and we'll get into what we think on each side. I think Steph at plus 120 is the hedge. So I think, to me, if the Warriors win the finals, Steph is the MVP. Steph would have to play like the MVP for them to win it. So I think if you want the hedge for the Warriors, plus 120, the other guys I'm looking at, and I'll say this, the props here, these are the series best bet I gave and the game one best bets we'll do. These are locked in. Like I've bet these already. The series props we're working through. Joe and I have an article that we're going to do on the series props. But where I'm at right now is my long shot value I like is a similar 40-1 to your Horford. I'm at 45-1. I like Marcus Smart, 45-1 at DraftKings. And then I had a note to Jordan Poole. He is 30-1 at DraftKings. That's weird. I don't know why you lost value from last round till now. That is very annoying. But I want to talk about Poole a little bit at some point and how the benches shape up here, because I haven't made up my mind yet what I think about that. But yeah, I like those for finals MVP. And then I think Joe's going to have this one as well. But most rebounds for the series. Draymond Green is plus 1,200, so 12-1 at points bet. I like that one. And did I have anything else here? Also at points bet, Jaylen Brown against Klay Thompson, points per game. Just heads up. Jaylen Brown, we love Jaylen Brown here. I think he's going to take that one by 4 or 5 points. It's minus 167, so it's a lot of juice, but I think that it's not an even head-to-head matchup there. So I think those are my best bets. I've got a couple more longer shots we'll talk about along the way.
Joe, do you have anything that Brandon doesn't have? Are you guys just like in lock? Should I just have invited one of you on since you guys are just betting the same things?
We did bet that. And then I think that you can bet Curry to lead the series in threes. And I would take it at points bet. It's minus 125. It's weird. I hate taking a juiced prop like this, but like going into game one, but I just think his volume is much more significant than everybody else's. And I don't trust Tatum or Brown to like be consistent from 3-point range the entire series. And I don't want to take Klay because I think, like we said, like I think his points are going to be low. Like he's sitting around 20. So, I mean, I know he takes a lot of threes, but I don't want to go that way. So I think that Curry at minus 125, just based on volume, he should be able to get that lead in terms of 3-pointers made on the series as a whole. So it's kind of a juiced prop, but I think that there's some value there for him to lead in 3-pointers made.
So
do you have a finals MVP, Joe?
Yeah, I think that Curry, I agree. I think Curry's the hedge, but I like Horford is 120-1 at FanDuel, if you want to sprinkle that. And then I struggle to get away from Draymond. I just feel like if the Warriors do win, that he is going to be a menace on like everywhere. And then plus you have that Curry never getting an MVP kind of narrative. Like, I don't know if they need to give it to him. And then I feel like Draymond could have won one before. So at 14-1, I don't hate it, especially because I think that he's going to be so necessary in stopping, Tatum, Horford, whoever Boston wants to throw on offense.
Yeah, I should note that I definitely did bet the 120-1 for Horford. That was the number I got. So, all right. Joe and Brandon are extremely sharp on props and they do a really good job. And Brandon will tell you about how good a job he does pretty much constantly. But like they're here for a reason and they're excellent at this. I'm going to present the other side of the Curry case with the caveat that if you are like, I'm trying to decide between the two, take their advice. Okay. I'm not going to do it, but you should take their advice. They're very good at this. Here's my argument against Steph. One, he's never won finals MVP. Okay, sure. Other series, other teams. Yes. The reason he's never won finals MVP is when you get to this level, you're facing teams that are on some level competent, with the possible exception of the 2017 and 18 Cavaliers defensively. Typically speaking, those, and KD was around for those. Teams that are competent are going to be able to gear in and find certain mechanisms against specifically what Steph does. The Warriors don't spam pick and roll. Steph's not going to run a pick and roll with Draymond, get Tatum on a switch, get Marcus Smart or Al Horford on a switch, dribble him up, and then shoot a fadeaway pull up in his face. One, because the Celtics will throw a double team at him. But two, that's inherently not what they do. They want to get Steph in opportunities for him coming off that burst of speed, coming around screens. The best way you counter that is with the switch, which is why teams that switch have always caused Golden State trouble. And the Celtics off-ball screening, the Mavericks are really good on ball. They're not very good off ball. On ball, off ball, every scenario, the Celtics switches, when you watch them, are clean. They always call them out unless Robert Williams is involved. They always call them out. They know how to do it. They know how to show. And the number one priority on every single report they will be hammered upon the next 4 days is going to be, do not lose Steph Curry. Under no circumstances. They will throw doubles at him in certain scenarios. They like to blitz him when they run elevators. They like to blitz him in double screen situations. They especially double him when running what are in mid transition stagger screen. So you have one guy set one pick, and then a couple of feet back, you have another pick there. The Warriors love that, but teams have figured out how to defend it pretty well, and Boston defends it better than almost anybody. If you want the numbers, here they are. Over the last 5 seasons, the Celtics have allowed the 9th fewest shots per 100 possessions for Steph Curry of any team in the league. So that shows you that there's a baseline in the Tatum era of a competency in limiting Steph opportunities. 2, in this season, it was 11th. They also slowed him down to a pretty high degree. When Steph does get opportunities, guess what? He shoots pretty well because he's the greatest shooter of all time. But the Celtics are not going to focus on defending Steph's shots. They're going to focus on denying him the ball entirely. I honestly do not know if there's a better person involved for this than Marcus Smart. If you're talking about, there will be situations where they won't switch, where Smart will just dart around and be able to contest. He won't call for the switch, and he'll just try and contest those shots. And it's absolutely pretty ridiculous. Since 2017-18, Steph Curry is 9 of 27 with Marcus Smart contesting, a 44% effective field goal percentage. So if you don't think that, if you take this into consideration, and the Celtics have a very disciplined defense that may have breakdowns, but probably won't lose Steph would have to get it through assists, which is difficult to do with a switching defense and without a lob threat. If somebody's going to be picking up those dimes, it's going to be Draymond. It's going to be, they blitz him, short roll to Draymond, lob to Looney at the bucket, lob dunk, or Porter, or kick outs to the wing to Clay. I think that Draymond is a little bit live, but I don't think he's going to be able to score enough for the voters to vote on him.
Yeah.
The voting panel is going to be one of Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy, one of the studio show, so either Stephen A. Smith, Mike Wilbon, or Jalen Rose. It will be likely Gary Washburn from the Boston Globe. It will be likely one of the representatives from one of the Bay Area newspapers. Likely, I would say either Tim Kawakami, Anthony Slater, or Marcus Thompson from The Athletic. One of Jay King or Jared Weiss from The Athletic. And there will be one international representative and a few other national reporters. Sam Amick has typically been one of those guys. Brandon and I argued about this on a prior episode. I do not believe that there will be, I think Al Horford is more likely to get the narrative, like, look at this story. Al had 30 in game 4. He had 25 in the closeout game 6. I think he's more likely to get not a pity vote, but like a lifetime achievement vote than Steph Curry is, despite Steph not having won it. I think there's too many opportunities and too many ways. If there's one guy that I trust the best defense in the league to zone in on, it's Steph Curry, who doesn't just rise and fire. So to me, I can't find the value on Steph Curry. Joe, I'll go to you first, and then I'll let Brandon go back.
Yeah, I get what you're getting at. I think that even despite that, like looking at the last, really in his career, in 10 games against Marcus Smart, Curry averages 21 points, 4.6 assists. A lot of that's like kind of skewed because he has 2 really bad games with like 9 points and 3 points. So the bulk of them, he's still putting up, in the 20s. If not, a couple like monster games with like 47 points, whatever. I think if the Warriors are going to win the series, Curry has to be good. So I think that it's kind of one of those, like, I get where what you're saying in terms of who could contain him. But if the Warriors win, it's because Curry beat that. Okay. So I think that's my pushback on the MVP part.
See, I have a lot more faith in Golden State's defense. I think Golden State can win this with like a great Clay game or a great Poole game or a great Wiggins game. And then like Steph has 20 and 22 or whatever on an inefficient shooting performance, but it's enough to like carry and pass. Brandon, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can win a game that way or a couple of games that way. But I agree. To me, I agree with everything you said, Matt. Everything you said. I just think that you just made the case for the Celtics winning the series.
Yep.
And that's why, like you asked before, Joe, why do you like the Celtics? Like all the stuff you just said is why I like the Celtics, because the Warriors need Steph. Yes, I agree with what Joe said too. the Warriors, to me, only can win the finals if Steph plays like he deserves the MVP.
Yep.
I don't think he's going to be able to, which is why I don't think they're going to win the finals. But that's why it's the hedge for me, because if he just goes ballistic and makes all the shots or finds solutions that we're not seeing right now because he's Steph, then I think that he's the MVP.
Yeah, so I think that's like a great point, right? So when I say hedge, I have basically separated my bets. I have my series bets and I have my MVP bets. So Tatum is my hedge on a number of series MVP. I bet Tatum, I bet Horford, I bet Clay. Those are the three that I've got. I've got Poole from before. I've got Steph from before at a bigger number, but I don't. The Steph thing was basically built off of I'm getting Steph Curry, who I think is going to make the finals at a bigger plus number, right? So like if we just look at, I'm approaching it as Tatum is my hedge to where if Horford doesn't win and Clay doesn't win, I think it's going to be Tatum. And Tatum, if I'm right and the Celtics win and Horford doesn't win it, I think it's going to be Tatum. I just continue to not be sold on Jaylen Brown for a number of reasons. The dribbling, I don't know how you, like, if anybody's thinking about betting Jaylen Brown for MVP, I don't know how you can do that given that he can't dribble. I think if you're going to win in finals MVP, you need to be able to dribble the basketball. Do you agree, Brandon?
I mean, I agree, except for the fact that we literally just saw him be in the mix and saw several actual voters who voted on the awards say that they were considering him. Like he was right there in the mix. So,
but who won, Brendan?
They were considering him. He had chances in game 6 and game 7. Like, look, we lost the bet. I bet it 4 times and it lost. There you go. You're happy I lost the bet, but he was right there. He had value on the 12 and 14 and 10-1 number. So you can't just say, well, he'll never win an MVP thing. He can't dribble. Like that is reductive. And he was, despite having 4 turnovers the last 3 games in a row, and despite having very bad stretches and moments, which he did all those things, he still was right there with a chance to win. I think, though, the correction is this. If you like Jaylen, what I have learned from this, from agonizingly watching the entire fourth quarter as Jaylen just stood over in the corner and waited in case he happened to get an open 3-pointer whenever Tatum was done doing his stuff, you can't wait for Tatum. You can't wait for Brown to win this at game 7 or to win this in the fourth quarter. If Brown would win it somehow, it has to be because he gets the knockout punch early with the big game or something. Yeah. So let me circle back to a question that I brought up earlier, because that kind of ties to the thing I feel least confident about still in the series. I don't know what I think this looks like when the bench units are in. And let's be clear, bench unit means semi-bench unit. We're talking about like 7 and 8 man rotation here. So to me, bench unit means Jayson Tatum off the court. Bench unit means Steph Curry off the court. Like that's the main thing. How are you handling when your superstar is off the court? And I think that either Jaylen Brown for the Celtics, because he's hunting Poole and maybe even Clay a little bit at this stage, maybe that's where Brown shines and gets a little run. Or that's why I think Jordan Poole is a huge swing X factor in the series. Because if they're going to win those bench units, and I know he's going to get attacked, but if he can win his matchup and get his points, I think that is a huge way to swing for the Warriors' favor.
That's a great point. That is an absolutely terrific point, because I think it's tougher for Jaylen to attack those mismatches, because what was the reason? Oh yeah, he can't dribble. And so if you can't dribble, it's very hard for you to attack these targeting things, right? The Warriors' second unit is oftentimes going to be Poole and Clay. The Warriors will also send help. Like they actually did a really good job versus the Mavericks when they started targeting Poole. They sent enough help to kind of deter. And so like there was a lot of opportunities there for them to be able to kind of limit that. So I think it's interesting. The Celtics won the second quarters versus the Heat and Bucks consistently. And I wonder if they're going to lose these second quarters and fourth quarters versus the Warriors, because part of it too is going to be, if you're scoring, but the Warriors are scoring, the Warriors are going to be like, we'll live with it. We have more weaponry than you.
Yeah. I think so. Jordan Poole, a Jordan Poole stat, games 1 through 3. So Jordan Poole is averaging 17.4 points a game for the playoffs. Here's what's wild. In games 1, 2, or 3, so this makes sense if you think about it. when is Poole going to play more? Probably early in the series until we start to adjust and be like, he's starting to get targeted. We're going to have to take his minutes down a little bit.
Yeah.
And games 1 and 2, he's been at home. And to be fair, we have games 1, 2, and 3 from the first series when Steph is out and coming off the bench.
Yeah.
So all that plays in a little bit. However, games 1, 2, and 3, Jordan Poole for the playoffs has averaged 24 points per game. Game 4 and beyond, 11.1 points per game. Is a massive swing there. His over-under right now for game 1 points is 15.5. He's under that in 6 of the 7 games late in series. He's had 19 or more points in 8 of the 9 game 1, 2, and 3s in the series. So I think Poole early on, the 2 home games, we know he's way better at home. If they can get him going, I think that gets interesting. I might look for some alternate Poole prop overs early on. And I think too, if you have a book that does cash out, I don't know if I truly believe Jordan Poole can win finals MVP. That's asking a lot, but I could see a cash out value where we're getting this long number and he has some early good games before it starts to kind of move on out. But Matt, do you think he's not going to get played off in the matchups like he has been?
I don't actually. I think that part of Golden State's equation is going to be, we don't want to try and win a slugfest. Like, part of this is just about, this is a matter of, do you think, again, we're back to the Boston offense thing. Do you think their offense is good enough to sustain versus Golden State? If Golden State doesn't start taking defensive liabilities off the court, can they exploit those enough? I think that they are, which is why I'm betting Celtics. It's close, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like, oh, Golden State is in trouble here. I'm like, no, I think the value is on Boston. I think Boston's going to win. I'm picking Boston in 6. I think this could be a really great series. And a lot of this is like intangible stuff. And because once you start getting into like who actually has more firepower, I firmly believe that it's the Warriors. But Boston has found enough offensive answers. They just have Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, everybody. That's all kind of on the books. All right, Brandon, we got one more prop. I'm going to let you get one more in, buddy.
All right. This one's just for fun. It's probably going to lose, but it's going to be the most fun bet you make for the finals. And I actually think the odds are in our favor. At DraftKings, you can bet, will either team break the record for most 3-pointers in a finals game? That means 25 threes or more. It's 20-1. I think that there's slight value there. The Warriors have never done this yet. In their whole stretch of all these title runs, their max is 21. 25 is a lot more than 21 on 3-pointers, but they had 20 against the Grizzlies. They're going to shoot a lot of threes in these series. That's what the numbers from the regular season told us. That's how the Celtics defense, I think, is going to line up. I know it's not what's happened so far, but that's, I think, how the matchup is going to go. I ran the math. If you go 47 attempts at their season, 36% per game, that gives you a 1.2% chance of doing this in a game. You got 6 games. We're up to 6.9% chance. Nice chance of being able to do that. And we get Celtics too.
You got bad, Joe?
That's something.
Here's the
seems
thing.
like a
That's
lot.
something.
We're probably gonna lose, but it's the most fun bet because imagine the one Warriors game when it's at home and the third quarter avalanche comes and there's 3 threes in a minute and we're up to like 18 and you're doing the math and trying to figure it out. We're probably going to lose still, but think of how much fun we're going to have when we hit to that 17, 18, and we're like, come on, 7 more, 6 more.
They have to get 26 threes, right?
25.
Is it the tie or break? Because 25 is a record.
25 is the number that it says at DraftKings.
Okay. So they're going to be at 24 and Jaylen Brown's going to miss 4 threes. And then I'm going to, and then
it's going to be Golden State. It's not going to be Boston.
It's going to be amazing. All right, guys. Thanks for breaking this down. We're going to have a game 1 episode up for you. Make sure to check that out. Make sure to check out the Action Network app. It's got all of our content, including all of our previews and prop bets. You can follow Joe and Brandon's props in the app as well. We'll be back this week, all throughout the week. Lots of episodes daily covering the NBA finals. I've got guests lined up. It's going to be a fantastic week here. Let's get buckets.